A Republican attempt to protect a GOP megadonor appears to be falling a bit flat. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, Oversight Committee Chair James Comer have been attempting to block an investigation into Federalist Society co-chair Leonard Leo. Now, this is led by Washington, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab. Now, Leo is a billionaire who helped to reshape the Supreme Court. He's being investigated for illegally funneling money from his nonprofit into his for-profit consulting firm, CRC Advisors. Now, Leo's company was paid at least $43 million in compensation by this web of conservative nonprofit groups in the last 2 years. So this is for services that he did not disclose. So basically, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I did all this work for these nonprofit groups. Then I got all this compensation for it, and I'm not going to tell you what I actually did." And he's not required to. That said, Brian Schwab looks into this and says, "Well, that's weird. You made a lot of money. You've enriched yourself very much personally. That seems a little weird." Okay? Now, Jordan and Comer have responded to this investigation by threatening to subpoena Schwab. Now, on Tuesday, they received a response in a letter to Comer and Jordan. Schwab writes, "After thoughtful consideration, I must reiterate what I stated in my prior correspondence of November 13, 2023. Our office has a long-standing policy, consistent with the policies of law enforcement agencies across the country, not to confirm, deny, or otherwise comment on potential or pending investigations." Basically, stay out of my business. He added, "Nothing in your latest letter sets forth a persuasive reason for deviating from that principled, well-established policy." Yeah, but they're like, "We really don't like what you're doing. Please don't look at our GOP megadonors." Not a good reason, though. Furthermore, the letter says, "Your December 18th letter does not recognize OAG's legitimate law enforcement interests, nor does it identify a valid, detailed, and substantial legislative purpose for your inquiry. Moreover, none of these cases cited in your letter support diverging from the legislative branch's long-standing practice of eschewing interference in political or pending potential or pending law enforcement investigations." So, look, what this seems like to me is that the subpoena is an attempt to say, "Hey, whoa, you can't investigate our guy. What are you doing? We're going to have to put a little political pressure on you, Brian, so that you stop looking into our guy." Now, obviously, Schwab, he's going to twist the knife a little bit further by saying this: "I remain open to a productive and constructive discussion about whether we can help your committees pursue a valid legislative purpose while not compromising long-standing, universally held law enforcement principles. However, your correspondent's refusal to acknowledge these principles or identify any valid legislative purpose, coupled with its thoroughly politicized rhetoric, would seem to cast doubt on whether such a productive discussion is possible. To the contrary, it strongly suggests that you would rather use any effort by our office to more fully engage with your inquiry for no purpose other than to amplify your erroneous and ill-founded accusation that our office is influenced by political interests. I respectfully request that your committees not interfere with us doing our job." I love it. So here's another example of Republicans trying to stop the cops. Well, now wait a minute. You're only trying to stop the cops if you're a robber, or if you're, in this case, trying to drive the getaway car. Just saying. No, look, James Comer claims to be so obsessed with fighting corruption, right? So obsessed that he's trying to impeach Joe Biden. We got to impeach Biden. He's taking bribes from China and Ukraine. Wait, but there's no evidence of that. Okay. That said, they're like, we're going to go after Joe Biden to try to find evidence against him through this impeachment inquiry, but you can't go after Leonard Leo for, finding evidence that he enriched himself illegally by violating tax laws. by taking all this money from nonprofits, really trying to funnel money from these nonprofits into your for-profit company. Okay, I got it. So it's pretty clear why Jordan and Comer defend Leo. Leo's a giant conservative donor. He's the man who ensured that the Supreme Court will be conservative for a generation. So, progress, nope, effectively blocked progress with helping that Supreme Court, okay, be as conservative as it is. He got incredibly rich off those recommendations, off this list of possible Supreme Court justices, court appointees that ended up making it to the bench. That gave him an opportunity to serve as Trump's unofficial advisor in the White House, which obviously raised his status in conservative circles. He then got his network of outside groups for tens of millions of dollars in anonymous donor funds into promoting these nominees. And of course, that's all while his consulting firm was getting millions of dollars for unspecified work, a lot of which ended up going right into his pockets. In fact, according to Politico, who had cited IRS and other public records, between 2016 and 2020, there was a major expansion of Leo's personal wealth that coincided with the start of his work for Trump and the creation of his own for-profit entity called BH Group. Both happened in 2016. Now, that same report noted that Leo used to live more of a middle-class lifestyle, and now, since his work co-chairing the Federalist Society, and of course helping Trump and conservatives get some massive wins in the Supreme Court, he owns 2 mansions in Maine and at least 4 new cars, and is generally living it up. Now, when that happens, the IRS have to look into it. I mean, it's a big red flag. Like, wait a minute, that's weird. In fact, according to one ex-IRS official, when an individual creates a nonprofit that then pays a for-profit that makes them very wealthy, it tends to throw up a red flag. Seems like a pretty good reason to look into it, just to make sure that you are following tax laws. Now, if you combine that with what he's used some of his fortune on, and it looks like there's some, self-interest here. Okay, a little bit of corruption, for example. After Justice Anthony Kennedy announced his retirement in August, Leo paid off the mortgage on his home in Virginia after making numerous renovations. Now, why does that matter? Well, Anthony Kennedy's retirement made the way for Brett Kavanaugh to replace him, a much younger individual, okay, who was going to be on the court for a very, very long time, incredibly pro-corporate and conservative. And then, of course, you look at Clarence Thomas and his wife, who Leonard Leo has some very close ties with. The big problem here is that if you have business before the court, the Supreme Court, as the Federalist Society may end up having, the concern is the role getting these justices on the bench, plus any personal gifts like trips, for example, where Clarence Thomas is kind of in a little bit of trouble for taking all these gifts from Harlan Crow, another billionaire. Well, that creates a conflict of interest. Now, of course, Comer and Jordan are screaming, "Don't investigate him! Don't investigate him!" And it makes you wonder why. Well, maybe because they have a conflict of interest here, and they want to see Leonard Leo continue to deliver wins for conservatives, even if he's doing crime. Okay? The thing is, don't you want to know why, even though the group Americans for Public Trust has lost over half its donations in the years 2021 to 2022, that the pay to the CRC actually increased? Don't you want to know that? It seems weird to me. You would think that if the donations to this nonprofit group went down, then the for-profit consulting company would make less money. Because it seems like your consulting kind of sucks, and that you're not doing your job, and that you're not getting out your message to get more donations. That's how it's supposed to work, right? Well, that's unless it's a money funneling scheme. which starts with Donors Trust, a big conservative fundraising machine. And then it goes from Donors Trust to these so-called nonprofits that get funneled to Leo's consulting firm, who now, again, makes a lot of money from that. And of course, the consulting firm, the profits from that go right into Leonard Leo's pockets. It kind of sounds like corruption to me. Hey, Jim Jordan, James Comer, you want corruption? You might have it here. Better get on it. Oh, that's right. Silly me. I forgot. It's only corruption when the other side does it.